What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, putting America first, second, and third. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020. Sure happy it's Thursday, sure happy it's Thursday, sure happy it's Thursday, and it's 3 weeks to Christmas Eve. So get those decorations up there and try and get your Christmas shopping done. Most of it's being done online, and apparently the delivery services like Amazon and UPS and even the regular post office, they're already on overload trying to deal with things. Our local post office has a special custom Santa Claus postmark, and apparently every year tens of thousands of people will send a mail to the Santa Claus post office just to get the return mail with that postmark on it. And it's there's several versions. They're very large and very ornate, and apparently people think that's really cool. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about today, and as usual, we're going to do news until I run out of news. Then we'll open up the phone lines for your comments, questions, opinions, and observations. And as always, Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble. Again, the top story continues to be the revelations coming out about election fraud and efforts by the deep state to try and make this all go away here. And apparently the Trump campaign has unveiled a whole bunch of information it's going to present, or did present, to a Nevada state court today that suggests there were thousands of fraudulent votes cast, possibly enough to overturn Joe Biden's win there by 33,569 votes. And apparently some of the evidence they found, 1,500 ballots cast by dead voters, and apparently 42,248 people voted multiple times. There were data on a huge spike in incomplete voter registrations and home addresses that pointed to RV camps and casinos. And so they're basically out there fighting the good fight here. Now, in Trump's 45-minute speech yesterday, said it was the most important speech he ever made. And the corporate media is already dismissing and saying, oh, he's already said these completely discredited claims about election fraud. You know, we've got to protect, you know, the sanctity of the elections. You know, people have got to believe the elections are honest and so forth. Well, a little late for that here. Anyway, during his speech was actually Tuesday, he alluded to what is being called Sharpie Gate. Now, this happened over in Arizona, and the way it came on out is you're not supposed to use Sharpies or any other felt tip marker to mark the ballots because the ink would bleed through to the other side, and when it was run through the tabulator, it would be rejected. And basically said, you know, it would be useless. And apparently there is, you know, where these votes were simply thrown out. And the scandal is that apparently registered Democrats were being given ordinary pens to fill out the ballots, and the Trump voters, Republicans, were given the Sharpies. It was just another way of rigging the election. And there's yet another trucker turned whistleblower. And he was saying that there were 300,000 ballots inside his trailer that simply vanished when it was parked in a Pennsylvania yacht. And corporate media is still out there pushing that Biden won the election, even though cases are still being heard and evidence continues to surface. And we need to get back to this issue about hundreds of thousands of ballots were shipped from New York to Pennsylvania, which is illegal, and they were counted in Pennsylvania, even though in theory these were New York ballots. And so the chicanery was just happening all over the place. Apparently, a contractor working for Dominion Voting Systems at the TCF Center testified before the Michigan House Oversight Committee that thousands of ballots were scanned multiple times in the Dominion machines. In other words, they'd run the ballots through the machine, then they'd take them back, load them in again, run them through again, over and over and over again. Now, to show you how suspicious things are really getting, this is a story coming out of Station Gossip. There was a congressional race in upstate New York where the Republican won by just a few ballots. And then all of a sudden, miracle of miracles, 55 uncounted ballots were found that switched the context to the Democratic candidate. And if you believe that one, I have some of Saddam Hussein's nuclear weapons to sell you here. Now, a federal appeals court in Georgia has approved a fast track for Sidney Powell's request for a forensic exam of the Dominion voting machines. And that is long, long overdue here. And basically, members of the Georgia Senate Oversight Committee were shown surveillance footage, you know, those cameras that are all over the place to watch us. Well, they watch the bad people too. And apparently at State Farm Arena, the video caught these Atlanta election workers scanning ballots from a suitcase under a table after hours, after they were supposed to be closed, counting for the night. And the video shows 4 individuals scanning in ballots from this suitcase. And again, it's like, you know, somebody hit the panic button and it just became too obvious. Now, the Georgia Secretary of State has started a little bit of a kerfuffle. They're already dealing with Democrat-linked groups for attempting to register deceased people and out-of-state voters ahead of the runoff election. And apparently this one group linked to Stacey Abrams tried to register the Georgia Secretary of State's son. The only problem is the son has died. So they're out. You know what's going to happen if Trump pulls this off and gets a second term? All of Biden's voters are going to be spinning in their graves. Over in Wisconsin, Sidney Powell has filed a suit to block the state from certifying the results. And basically, Powell is asking the court to block Governor Tony Evers from transferring currently certified election results to the Electoral College and have the certification reversed pending a full investigation and court hearing. Now, also in Wisconsin, the High Court, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, basically today refused to hear one of the Trump lawsuits attempting to overturn his loss to Joe Biden in the battleground state. Now, they didn't actually reach a decision and instead said the case has to first wind its way through lower courts to try and run out the clock. And basically, you know, one of the arguments that they were coming up with was how, you know, these claims of election irregularities will leave a stain on the 2020 election and harm the people's trust in the fair and honest election system. And we're starting to hear that more and more, that, you know, the claims of election fraud are damaging the confidence in the election system. But we already know that's happened. Polls are showing almost half of Americans and 30% of Democrats think this election was rigged. And so it isn't the challenge to the election that's harming the integrity of the election process. It is tinkering with the election that is harming the integrity of the election process. Needless to say, Twitter is now flagging Sidney Powell's account with a warning. You know, if you read this tweet, your nose is going to fall off and you will smell bad and nobody will love you. Okay, now, interestingly enough, Smartmatic has been insisting it has no affiliate relationships or financial ties with Dominion voting systems. But apparently, according to Chairman Lord Mark Malloch Brown, basically admitted that the Smartmatic technology is in fact licensed from Dominion voting systems. And Dominion and Smartmatic are trying to distance themselves from each other. But this shows there definitely is a link. All righty. Now, the firm that owns Dominion Voting Systems received $400 million from a Swiss bank account funded by communist Chinese government and companies before the election. This is coming from SEC filings. And basically, they're trying to, you know, figure out why Staple Street Capital, which acquired Dominion in 2018, would be getting this huge chunk of cash through a Swiss bank from China. Or maybe China is just another cutout and the money came from elsewhere. We really don't know about this. Down in Detroit, there was a Detroit local, Jesse Jacobs. She was a worker at the ballot processor at the Wayne County in the November election, and she testified about the intimidation and harassment that she was subject to by obvious Biden supporters here. And she said, they treated me like a criminal, humiliated me, harassed me. It was so bad. And again, more brown shirt tactics that we're seeing out there. Getting on back to censorship here, apparently YouTube and BitChute are now engaging in simultaneous censorship. If you thought BitChute was a censor-proof platform, wrong. I'm afraid not. They are compromised. They're acting the same way. Facebook and Twitter are taking new actions to censor what they call hate speech. Unfortunately, the definition of hate speech is very fuzzy. Nobody's really sure what it means, but all they have to do is say questioning the election is hate speech, and they can go ahead with their censorship. Now, there's an article that came out of wolfdaily.com talking about the 7 censorship tactics that big tech uses to control the flow of information. And basically, you can read the article with the explanations on whatreallyhappened.com, but it comes down to direct censorship, simply deleting articles and posts and Facebook posts, deplatforming, literally cutting people off the platform, delegitimizing, that's an attack on the credibility of the poster and the contents of the article, de-amplification. This is when the social media platforms rig the ratings on videos and such so that they appear much, much lower down in searches. Same thing with the concept of demotion, where if you have so many viewers, they'll lower the number so that you don't appear on searches. We've caught YouTube doing that to some of Claire's music videos as well. Demonetization, that's really happening a lot, where social media is simply pulling the plug on people who are trying to make money on their videos. We were deplatformed a long time ago, so we gave up trying to do anything about it, but it's now happening to a lot of other people. And it's reached a point here where former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, in an interview on Breitbart News, said that these fake news media are your mortal enemies. And he's saying it is that serious. They are a threat to democracy, to the republic, and they're turning us into a new Soviet Union. Now, a little bit of bad news for Facebook, which I'm sure you're going to enjoy. Apparently, more than 40 states, led by New York, are investigating Facebook for antitrust violations, and they're going to file a massive lawsuit against Facebook next week. And Facebook is, of course, declining to comment here. More videos are coming out from Project Veritas, as we reported on this earlier in the week. James O'Keefe managed to get hold of the phone number for the daily editorial conference calls at CNN and recorded them for the last 2 weeks, and they have just caught all kinds of things. And so the video that was released today is CNN's president, Jeff Zucker, basically was ordering the news division to help Joe Biden and to harm Donald Trump. And, you know, I know why they're out there still desperate for Biden to win, because if Trump does get through the Supreme Court, if this does go to the House of Representatives and he prevails, he should go after these social media companies for what they tried to do to him. It's time to put on those presidential brass knuckles and take care of some business here. Getting into non-election politics here, the Senate has confirmed Trump's nominee Waller to the Federal Reserve Board. It was pretty much a party line vote, as to be expected. And Christopher Waller was the research director at the Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis. and he's confirmed to a term that runs through January of 2030. Okay, Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell are trying to ram the National Defense Authorization Act through Congress without removing Section 230 of the Communications Act of, I think it was 1996, that's the section that protects social media from liability for whatever they do. And Donald Trump is out there saying that if Section 230 is not repealed in this bill, he will veto it. And so there's a big stink coming out about that. All righty, let's talk about COVID-19. It's still out there. They're still pounding on it for fear and selling vaccines. And there's something else on the horizon now. This is a story that came out of Zero Hedge. Apparently, yesterday, the Department of Defense released the first images of a proposed COVID-19 vaccination record card. And these so-called immunity cards will be issued to all Americans. Now, the stated purpose for this is to enable the CDC to track COVID-19 vaccine status in a database, which they should be able to do from the doctor's records, which are all on computers because of the Affordable Care Act. And so my concern is that the United States is going to be headed to where Great Britain is headed, which is where, unless you can show proof that you've received the vaccine, you will be denied entry to cinemas, sporting venues, restaurants, department stores. Your life will not go back to normal. And again, they keep saying the vaccine will not be mandatory, but this is obviously setting up for a very coercive program to get everybody to get the shot. And maybe the abuse of all these lockdowns is to get everybody so desperate to get back to normal life that they'll just take the shot without really thinking it through. Okay, story out of Global Research up in Canada calling for a boycott of the vaccination program. And they point out the FDA-approved drug ivermectin inhibits the replication of COVID-19, but nobody wants to talk about it because they've got a whole new line of products to sell. And, there's more money to be made selling drugs to perfectly healthy people than merely selling drugs to those who are already sick. Now, we mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. This is coming out of Natural News here. Apparently, patients with COVID-19 who are treated with hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and azithromycin, their hospitalizations drop by 84%. And so there are treatments that are already out there, but the big money is in the vaccines. Another story, this should worry people. This is from shtfplan.com here. Now, Dr. Monsef Slaoui, who is leading the Trump administration's COVID-19 vaccine program, admitted the vaccine for this statistically irrelevant virus has significant side effects that will affect between 10 to 15% of the people, probably worse than if they just had the COVID virus in the first place. And again, think back to 1976 and the swine flu vaccine debacle here. Over in Great Britain, they've run an audit that has discovered that the British government spent hundreds of millions of pounds on potentially unsuitable personal protection equipment. They bought all of this stuff and it's unsuitable for use is what they're saying. And apparently the National Audit Office said the unsuitable personal protection equipment were from two contracts worth US dollars $285 million. And apparently these face masks had ear loops rather than the required head straps. Well, we'll see about that. Okay, gotta take a break for commercials. More about COVID-19 when we come on back. Anyway, a little friendly reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network is in the middle of a perpetual fundraiser. We really need your help. We're in a fight for the future of our nation, for the future of an honest election system. And we have so many entities with so much money arrayed against us. And the only way we're going to get the big money out of politics and media is for the little money to unite together. And try and change things here. So once again, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. All righty, getting on back to COVID-19 and Great Britain here. Apparently, the National Health Services are building what they call vaccination teams, and they are recruiting firefighters, flight attendants, church leaders, and the unemployed. Now, I don't know about you, but when I do get a injection, I would like it to be by a trained doctor or nurse, and certainly not by somebody who was out of work. Or for that matter, I'm not all that confident about the flight attendants, but that's what they're planning to do over there. Okay, this next one is going to get you into the twilight zone here. Pope Francis has come on out and said that God has informed him that everyone has to receive the COVID-19 vaccine or they will not be allowed to enter heaven. And I'm not kidding. This is not a satire site. This came out of Clarion, causeaction.com. But that's apparently what he came on out and said. The Pope's announcement, it just went on out, was distributed all over the world. Claire was asking if how much stock in pharmaceutical companies does the Vatican Bank own at this point. But talk about really rotten timing. There was this Ukrainian Greek Catholic priest, Friar John Fields, and he volunteered for the testing of Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine, and he has died. A little bad timing there, Pope. Okay. All right. Yesterday, the Ingram Angle on the Fox News broadcast a live interview with a world-renowned microbiologist, Susharit Bhakti, and it was on a Skype link from his home in Germany, saying that the COVID-19 vaccine is downright dangerous and could send you to your doom. So we're seeing all these experts come on out and say, look, it's too fast, it's untested, too many people got sick during the tests. And a couple of interesting developments. As you're probably aware, the corporate media lately has sort of resumed this idea of blaming COVID-19 on the Chinese. And they lied about how many patients they had, and it's all their fault. But apparently, there is some research. This was on the Australian website 7 News, basically saying that doctors at a Paris hospital have found evidence that one of their patients admitted in December had COVID-19 and had no known association or recent travel to China. And so now they're saying maybe it didn't start in China. And along that same line, another article from news.cgtn saying COVID-19 may not have originated in China. In fact, it may have been in a dormant stage in the environment for decades. And this comes from a British epidemiologist, and he found the virus prevalent in many parts of the world before the pandemic. And something triggered it to become infectious. But apparently they're saying it's been around for a very, very long time. It was just sleeping, and now it has awakened. All right, getting on back to censorship. Facebook is now removing all anti-vax articles. what they call conspiracy theories and what they call false claims about the coronavirus jab from its pages. I'll tell you, it is how hard they are pushing for everybody to get this that really makes me worry. It makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Over in Staten Island, that bar that was shut by lockdown orders triggered a large protest. People showed up outside, and we got to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about COVID-19 and the lockdowns, and we're talking about this bar in Staten Island that tried to defy the orders. One of the owners was arrested and handcuffed, triggered a large protest in front of the establishment. And here's where it really jumps the shark, if you will, because one of the other owners of the bar showed up and went inside his own place of establishment. Now, he did not open it up. He did not allow customers in, but the police showed up anyway and arrested him for trespassing. So it's just really getting out there. Now, over in Michigan, apparently a business owner interrupted a local newscast to basically scream at Whitmer's lockdown and saying it's tyranny. And claiming that the federal aid program meant to help small businesses stay afloat was wasted on special interest and campaign donors. He's certainly right about that. A lot of that money actually went to large businesses who were perfectly capable of surviving the downturn. But he basically got in front of the camera during the newscast and said, we have to fight back. Out in Los Angeles, their county mayor was out there saying that not wearing a mask is an act of domestic terrorism. And this is Mayor Rex Paris, and basically said that you are a terrorist if you do not wear a mask. Just how hard they're pushing all of this. And it doesn't make sense when you look at the actual illnesses, numbers of deaths. They're just not there. It's less than the seasonal flu here. Over in Leipzig, Germany, they have launched a Christmas drinking ban, thinking that that will help fight the coronavirus here. And apparently Leipzig is banning the sale of mulled wine and other hot alcoholic drinks. And this is going to slam the so-called Christmas markets that tend to pop up in German cities during the holidays. And apparently Leipzig is also going to ban all sales of alcohol from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. at supermarkets, restaurants, petrol stations, and other shops. And so there we are. All right, turning to the international news here. This is a headline from Investment Watch blog saying, heads up, something about to go down with Iran. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad evacuated. Now, we reported on that evacuation yesterday, and everybody was saying what's going on. But yes, if the U.S. attacks Iran, the U.S. allies in the region or U.S. assets in the region are going to come under attack. And this story from southfront.org is saying that the United States and Israel are in fact preparing for more military action against Iran following the assassination of their nuclear scientist, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. Say that 3 times fast. And apparently the Israeli Defense Forces and U.S. forces are stepping up their coordination mechanisms to react to what Israeli media likes to call non-motivated aggression by Iran. That's worth about 4 Pinocchios right there. Now, a while back, Russia was complaining about how the United States is placing nuclear weapons all across Europe, which is a violation of several treaties. And some additional information is coming on now. Apparently, a video released by Sandia National Laboratories shows a U.S. F-35 fighter flying at supersonic speed, launching a B-6112 nuclear bomb without the actual fission component in there. And the bomb glided until the tail section rocket gave it a rotational motion, and the satellite guided system headed for its target. Now, the problem is they're now stationing those very bombs with the physics package in Italy, or they're about to. And apparently the bomb has 4 different yield settings. And so anyway, the Marine Corps just received their first F-35C carrier variant Joint Strike Fighter Squadron, and it's been officially declared ready for combat. So VMFA 314 from Miramar, used to be the location of the Top Gun school, saying that their F-35Cs have achieved initial operational capability, and they've authorized the aircraft for worldwide carrier deployment operations. So they're getting ready to go on out there. The United States Navy is sort of kind of bringing back the U.S. Atlantic Fleet in response to Russian threats. And basically, it was just a renaming. They had the Fleet Forces Command, and they're renaming it as the U.S. Atlantic Fleet. And I'm not sure what that really means. It's probably trying to send yet another message to Putin. All right, let's talk about the economic news here. It's getting a little weird out there. Ilhan Omar is out there saying that the government should cancel rent and mortgage payments for everyone. She put this out on Twitter, and needless to say, she got a good shellacking on social media. And, you know, it sounds really good, but it's hardly practical. Because you know, the owners of the rental property and the holders of the mortgages, they still have their debts they have to pay. I mean, this is the sort of a step that could cause tremendous economic damage. So she obviously does not think these things all the way through here. Okay, House Minority Leader. Yes, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy called out Nancy Pelosi, saying that she has been wrong to hurt the unemployed and small businesses. This is talking about the COVID relief bill, which is still being stalled over Democratic demands that it be used to bail out Democratic cities and states that have managed to get themselves into serious economic trouble, whereas others are thinking that the COVID relief bill should be providing relief to the American people who have certainly been harmed by all this fear-mongering and mask-wearing and lockdowns and restrictions here. Now, Elon Musk is out there saying that, you know, Tesla could be in some kind of trouble. He describes it as getting crushed like a souffle under a sledgehammer. I've never used a sledgehammer, but I've had several souffles get crushed underneath the spatula here. Anyway, the Tesla shares are up nearly 600% year to date. A lot of people are making money on it, but it's the popularity and the demand for the Tesla stock are all based on expectations of future earnings. And they are not certain to materialize because of the problems Tesla is having with its more recent cars here. Now, down in Panama, as you're probably aware, China took control of the canal system many years ago, and they built a second set of locks that are larger than the original ones to allow larger ships to transit. Sounds like a really good thing. It's called the Neo-Panamax locks. They opened in 2016, and they are used by container ships, liquefied natural gas carriers, liquefied petroleum gas carriers, and apparently the demand for these ships to go through is causing a jam. They've literally got a traffic jam, and it's not being helped by the fact that canal operators, staffers, are dealing with their own COVID-19 issue. All righty. Apparently, Bon March, it's a women's wear chain, has collapsed into administration. That's the British version of a bankruptcy for the second time in a year, putting 1,500 jobs at risk as the retail crisis deepens. Over at the Wall Street Journal, they're pointing out that the world's appetite for debt is smashing records. Countries and banks all over the world are buying up the debt of other nations, even in the face of the impossibility that these debts are ever going to be paid off. Certainly that's true here in the United States of America. The federal government cannot balance their books. There's something like $27 trillion in debt right now, and they're continuing to spend like there's no tomorrow, mostly on the war machines here. Apparently, Republicans are now willing to re-embrace the idea of deficit spending for the military, and this is going to be under Biden, and Biden is already showing all the signs of revitalizing America's war machine and sicking it onto countries who have not actually done anything to us other than to refuse to do what the U.S. Tells them. Now, here is something that is going to upset a lot of people. Apparently, Colombia is considering legalizing the cocaine industry. And, you know, they've had 40 years of the United States anti-drug policy criminalizing the coca leaf. And apparently, Senator Ivan Moralanda wants to change tack. And so the bill creates a legal industry that distributes cocaine to users for pain relief, not recreational use. And like that in Bolivia, it also hopes to bring hundreds of thousands of illegal coca farmers out of the shadows into a legal homegrown industry. So we'll see what happens with that. All righty, we had a near encounter with an object back on December 1st, Tuesday, and it was dubbed 2020 SO. It came within 31,000 miles of our planet, and apparently they have determined that this is the upper Centaur stage of the launch vehicle that took Surveyor 2 to the moon. So, you know, we have a lot of stuff that's floating on out there that might eventually come back to Mama. I know they've identified one asteroid as being the S4B from one of the Apollo missions. So all that stuff is still out there. Now, China has had a huge, huge success with their lunar probe. It landed earlier in the week, took some really high-resolution photos, and there we go. All right, took some high-resolution photos, scooped up a bunch of lunar rocks, and it successfully took off, and it's on its way back to Earth with the first lunar rock samples since 1976. And so good for them. I'm glad it worked out. They're doing really good work over there. Now, for you astronomy buffs, and we'll probably mention this as we get a little bit later in the month, but on December 21st, the start of the winter solstice, in the evening sky, the evening sky just after sunset, Jupiter and Saturn are going to be very, very close together, looking like a double planet. Now, close alignments happen once every 20 years or so, but this one is going to be very close, the closest on record. In fact, you'd have to go all the way back to just before dawn on March 4th, 1226, to find a closer alignment. So we're going to be out there with our telescopes and our cameras and taking all kinds of pictures here. Okay, now the United Nations Climate Agency, this is coming from the Financial Times, they acquired a draft report by the United Nations Development Program of Audit and Investigations outlining how the climate agency, the UN Climate Agency, is full of fraud and corruption. And this is the Global Environment Facility, and apparently issues identified by the audit could seriously compromise the achievement of the objectives of the audited entity. Well, if you think that, you know, human-caused global warming is a hoax, and I'm one of those who do, then GEF just enjoyed all the money that was being poured into it, and they didn't need to do anything here. Okay, over in South Korea, and we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines now, area code 512-248-8252. And apparently in South Korea, as if they didn't have enough problems already, there has been an outbreak of the highly pathogenic H5N8 bird flu. And apparently they had to cull more than 10,000 birds in northern England a few days before. This latest outbreak is in the town of Giran-ri and killed 19,000 ducks. And so there are 6 other poultry farms that are being examined. And of course, the concern is if this virus could make the leap to humans, which some do. Again, the swine flu vaccine of 1976. Okay, this is getting a little weird out there. Apparently over at Eton College, there was this teacher, Will Noland, who showed a film, or a video actually, sort of praising or showing the good sides of masculinity, and he's been fired. And Eton College said it's not an issue of freedom of speech. Basically, you know, they're saying that you know, it challenges feminist orthodoxy. It makes the feminists feel inferior, and the rest of that. Another article, this one is coming out from uns.com, and it's talking about erasing the white male. And we have seen over this last year where white males are coming under attack from all corners, from the feminists, from the blacks, even from the Hispanics. And it's like, you know, what the heck did we do other than take care of ourselves and our country? But apparently that was some kind of a sin here. But apparently the author of this piece, which uns.com again, said that over the last several years, he is seeing the disappearance of white males from the publications and fundraising materials. Okay, and we're getting some stray noise. We're coming up here on another break. We got a caller waiting on the line here. But apparently, Georgia Tech was a state-supported school for in-state male students. Tuition was nominal. And so we're coming up here on a commercial break. When we come on back, we'll start taking phone calls. Area code 512-248-8252. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and I've just been informed by email that the website that ran that story about the Pope saying you needed the vaccine to get into heaven, apparently they got that story from Babylon Bee, which is a known hoax, false news story. So that story is already discredited here, and I just deleted it from whatreallyhappened.com. And we do have to be very careful. There's a lot of people who think it's funny to put out completely bogus stories to try and damage the credibility of the independent media down to the same level as the corporate media. All right, we're going to start taking some phone calls now. Gary in Arkansas. Hello, Gary. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, first, I'm a first-time caller, long-time listener.
Mm-hmm.
And the topic I want to talk is about the fundraising for RBN. Last night I was on John Stadmiller's show,
mm-hmm.
and I've got a setup where they just automatically take $30 off my credit card account
Well, thank
every
you.
month.
Thank you for your support.
I'm a Social Security guy with $1,000 income, okay,
Yeah.
per month, and by doing it with the credit card automatic, I don't have to fool with it. I don't have to call in and take up the secretary's valuable time, and it's quick and painless. I don't have to deal with it. And this month, since RBN's, in a little bind here, I called in and told them to take a second $30 deduction, to help out.
Well,
And
thank you.
I also put out the challenge that I would like to see 1,000 listeners do the $30 thing and set up the automatic deduction thing every month. I guarantee you, you will not feel the pain at the end of the month, because they do it on the first month when the check comes in, and by the end of the next month, I don't even miss it, even though I don't have that much income. So my challenge is this, folks. You listeners out there, I'd like to see 1,000 of you, and I know there's 1,000 of you out there. Call up, set it up, and leave John. Give him the time and the peace of mind to know that he's got 30 grand coming in every month, so he can stop chasing the dollars.
Yeah. Can I make a suggestion here, given the stress of your economic circumstances here? If you have a bank account and you have a debit card and you use the debit card, okay, then you'll avoid the interest on the credit card itself. And Gary, thank you very much for your help and for the challenge. And unfortunately, we need to take another break for station identification. We'll be back with more calls.
Can you hold me over, please?
Yes, I will. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open. Area code 512-248-8252. And we're talking with Gary in Arkansas, who has, despite, shortness of funds in his own life, he's making regular donations to Republic Broadcasting, and he's issued a challenge for others to do the same thing. Just set up a regular monthly debit from your probably debit card, so you avoid the interest on the credit card, for which we are very grateful. And Gary, you had something else you wanted to say.
Yes, I'd like to pat you on the back. I can tune into your program and I can get a broad scope of topics and interest things in a very short time. You're very comprehensive in your coverage. And then if I find a topic I am really more curious about, I can do my own research and branch out from that.
Well, that's like, the idea, yeah.
It's like, instead of reading the book, you get a 2-page bullet point synopsis of the book. And it's quick, it's efficient, it's very effective, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you for very much. And just a reminder.
And you folks out there, please give John a break. Let him run the station instead of chasing dollars. That's all I got to say.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I just want to remind you and everybody else that, on what really happened, if you click on the headline, it will take you to that original source, which is going to make your research a little bit easier. So, Gary, thank you very much for the donations. Thank you very much for the kind words. We're going to let you go and switch over to Jim in New York. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Mike. The last time I called was before the election, and I said, I'm not sure our elections are even real. Remember, I talked about hacking democracy.
Right.
Remember the documentary Hacking Democracy? Remember?
Yes.
Well, here we are.
Yep.
It looks like the smartest people in the room were the people who stayed home. They didn't wait 2 hours.
Well, you may be right.
In line.
Yep.
And be robbed. I think the CIA elected Biden. For what reason, I don't know.
It's easy to control.
I think the dead voters and the illegals, that's misdirection. The real steal is in the software and the hacking.
Yes.
That's the real steal. So, here we are. But, this is nothing new. The last 28 years, the following candidates were either cheated or totally robbed. Pat Buchanan, 1992.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Buchanan, 96. Al Gore, 2000 in Florida. Kerry, 2004 in Ohio. Oh, and it's not just the Democrats who rig elections. The Bush crime family also rigs elections.
Mm-hmm.
The most outrageous was Ron Paul in 2008 and 2012.
I remember that one, yes.
He was robbed by over 50 percentage points. And finally, Bernie Sanders in 2016.
Yep.
Bernie Sanders in 2020. And finally, Donald Trump in 2020. So, stolen elections are nothing new.
Nope.
Well, so here we are. One more point. Where's David from Boston, Ben? I haven't heard him in 2 weeks.
Well, he's been banned from RBN by upper management.
But why? I mean, RBN, sure, he's a bit of a hothead, but you shouldn't ban him. I mean, him and Tom in Florida are my two favorite callers. They're passionate. I don't agree with them.
Tom is our next caller, so he just heard you say kind things about him.
Oh, I think the world of Tom, but I miss David from Boston. I think, banning him is, I respectfully think it's a mistake. I mean, sure, he's a hothead, but, so what? I mean, what is he going to do? Is he going to punch you over the phone 1,000 miles away?
No, but
I don't understand.
He was disruptive to the show, and toward the end there, it seemed like his ego was getting the better of him, and he was out there calling on the phone just to hear his voice on the radio. And again, as I said, he annoyed quite a few people here at RBN, and we do have a ban list. I mean, that's the absolute truth. The obvious shills and troublemakers, are banned from calling into the shows because we're trying to keep the program informative and communicative to our audience and not have them have to sit and listen to a lot of garbage.
Yeah, but you could say that about other callers. I mean, to me, there's such a thing as the mute button. And if people don't like a caller...
I can only mute myself from here. And I do that every once in a while. But again, we do allow a lot of callers onto the show who cause a little bit of trouble. The gold medal troublemakers get banned. We keep the silver and bronze medal troublemakers online for entertainment purposes.
Yeah, but, just as easily as it is to ban someone, it's just as easy to unban them. So maybe after David has a little cooling off for a couple weeks, I think they should allow him back on RBN. I think it's RBN's loss to not have David. I like the two best callers, the most passionate callers you have is Tom in Florida, who I respect, and David in Boston, and I'll miss David in Boston, and I think it's unfortunate. So I respectfully ask RBN to unban David from Boston. And on that note, you have a great day, Michael, and thank you for taking my call.
You've got it. Thank you very much for the phone call, and we're going to switch over to Tom in Florida. Tom, your ears must be burning after that last phone call. What's on your mind?
Yes, Michael. Good day to you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, and thank you to Jim. I don't know what to say about that. I really appreciate that, Jim. But And there's some things I don't agree with Dave. I don't know actually what he did. So until you just explained it, so I was wondering what happened to him. But anyway, Mike, that's why your show is your show, man. People love your show. But what I got to say, Mike, what you had mentioned a few minutes back was about how white males, and especially white alpha males, are totally being decimated and desecrated, whatever you want to call it. We're being wiped out, Mike.
We're being dismissed.
You can look at a lot of cities where we're being dismissed, and you got Hollywood is gone nuts. If you look at most of the commercials now, you have these white women with Afro-American men and Afro-American women with white men.
Yes.
And I don't think neither people are happy about that. I mean, I don't believe the Afro-American woman is happy showing white females with black males. And I told you that in the past. And I think this is a plot, I don't know what you call it, to take down masculinity of the white alpha male, white male, and the black male, believe it or not. Okay? And so it's a disgrace what's going on. LGBTQ is like the most greatest thing out now. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, because who controls the media controls the mind. And I've been saying, Mike, until a bunch of white males, alpha males, who have a lot of money, like the guy like Trump and other men like him, start buying one of these major primetime networks, ABC, CBS, or NBC, where the dictate is always going to be what the leftist weirdo snowflakes. Okay? And that's exactly how it's going to remain until enough men in this country, white men and Afro-American men and Hispanic men, believe it or not, are fed up with this sissifying down our country. That's exactly what's happening here. But, and so on that point, Mike, I want to leave it on that one, but I'm glad you brought that up about that story that's breaking on Breitbart about white males are fading away. And, like I told you, Mike, here in South Florida, the white males, there's not one white man on the Miami-Dade County Commission. Broward County, I think, has 3 left. It's a total wipeout. It is about immigration and demographics. It's about flooding our country with a whole new demographic of people who don't even speak the language. You've got to teach these people a language, and it's crazy. But, getting back now with Omar, you got a broad who came out of Somalia by a guy named Barry Soetoro, Hussein Obama, flooded Minnesota and Maine with these Somalians, and she's stabbing him in the back about funding the police. And we want people like that running in our government and in the Capitol, a Somalian who wasn't even born in this country, dictating to white men and white women.
Okay, I want to be clear here. I want to be clear here. Okay, I have no objection to Ilhan Omar being from Somalia. My objection to her is she's coming out with these tweeted ideas where it's obvious she has not really thought these matters through. And this is unfortunately becoming a phenomenon we see with a lot of Democrats out there like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, where they'll come out with something that sounds really good the first time you listen to it, but it's clear they're not really thinking what the ramifications are going to be.
And Mike, I agree with you, but and what I meant to say is we got these people coming from other countries dictating our philosophy of our government, how we should, the establishment that we have here with white Anglo culture. We have to dictate now with their mentality, their ideology. No, Mike, I don't agree with that. I agree with you. But, this Omar is going to come over to the United States and say, well, you should relieve student debt. Look at her country, Mike. The country is in turmoil. It's destroyed. And all these other people that come from all these third world countries, their countries are destroyed. Why are they coming here? And if white men are such bad, racist people, why do they want to show up here on this shore of the United States where we are still the majority? The majority's supposed to rule, Mike. And we shouldn't be taking a backseat to nobody. And to all your callers, to every one of your callers, Mike, and I told you this in the past, you want to really create a big problem in this country? Go work for the government. Get a federal government job at all costs. Scream 33-degree rule. Scream affirmative discrimination. Whatever you do to get a county job or a federal job, any job you can get in the government. Because those jobs are paying $80,000, $90,000 a year, most of them. Believe it or not. And you know what? A lot of the minority groups here in South Florida have great jobs. They're not even in the country 2-3 years, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. And they're getting $80,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year jobs. Machinists, on the train, the bus station, even cleaning bus, Mike. You got people here cleaning buses in South Florida that are making $60,000 a year. in Broward County. I don't know about Ocala. I don't know about Orlando. But I'm sure those jobs in Jacksonville, I'm sure those cities have municipalities where they pay good money. And if you want to change the demographic of this country,
a lot of that, Tom, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of that has to do with the unions, which are guaranteeing those high salaries to all the union membership. And the big question is, are these unions now operating a quota system where they have to bring in so many of these ethnic groups? And so automatically, yes, they'd be protected by whatever labor contract is in place.
Well, yeah, Mike, but you know what? If you look at the scenario of a diesel mechanic in the United States is making three times what a block mason who's a journeyman block mason laying brick or block, building walls or building homes or any of that. They're not making what they used to. Back in the day, those guys were getting paid top dollar. Now they're down to like $12 an hour in California. They used to make $30, $40 an hour, some of the specialists doing brick, block, and, a mason. But now they're like, there's so many illegals coming into California and all these states in the Southwest and in Florida and all. Look at Georgia right now, Mike. The reason Georgia, they said a thing on the news that Georgia, a big Mexican Hispanic population in Georgia, and they mostly all registered as Democrats.
Yeah, that's the real problem is, a lot of people are being lured to this country with the promise of all kinds of free stuff, and they can be counted on to vote Democratic. I mean, we had some numbers the other day about how many illegal immigrants had voted Democrat, and they weren't supposed to. And so, the Democrats' lust for power is literally going to tear this nation apart. Anyway, Tom, I've let you go on long enough. One more thing short.
Mike, one more thing if I can. Yeah, Mike, one more thing. On Newsmax today, they did say it was perplexing to me, but I think it's a great thing. Jews voted 30% for Donald Trump. The first time in history, and the last, 50, 60 years, of electoral results, that over 30% of the Jews did vote for Trump. So I thought that was kind of amazing. The 14% black. So
maybe they were just as disgusted with Biden as the rest of us. Anyway, Tom, thank you for the call. I'm going to let you go. Switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Well, hi, Mike. Tack on a little to what Tom was saying. I'm not exactly sure how you can determine when they don't even know who really voted that you can vote. You can say how many 30% of this are voted for anybody. Maybe they can after they audit it, and they have to audit the election. They don't have to do a recount. They need to audit the whole goddamn thing. But the other thing I wanted to also chime in with on Tom is about the disappearance thing and how in Los Angeles, for instance, and I've lived here for a long time now, and I can't remember the last time I saw a Caucasian meter maid,
yes,
going around with those little vehicles they have. Now, they make 75, 80 grand a year. I can't remember the last time I had a white mailman. There seem to be whole classes of government jobs, and not just government jobs, that seem to be completely because of the hiring biases that have been legislated in. That exclude Caucasians, at least in areas where where you have the ability to make a choice between a Caucasian and a non-Caucasian. But when there aren't any around. They're not the ones that the hiring managers choose to hire or whatever. The system doesn't serve them up. But it goes on and on when you have people like, I can't remember, CBS or somebody that says that from here on out, 50% of all the people hired are going to be females. That's a private company, and of course that goes with the public too. And it just, where does that leave us? And by the way, even a meter maid, in the economy, we're going to look back from where we are right now, which is pretty damn bad. 3 months from now, a meter maid's job is going to be like, oh my God, it's like manna from heaven.
Yes.
Meter maid's job is going to look really good, and no, we're not going to have them. But at any rate, all I'm asking for is a fair shot for everybody. All I'm after is a meritocracy. But I can't.
Well, I'd like to see that too. I'm a meritocracy myself here, but they decided that equality of opportunity was too difficult to document, and so they mandated equality of outcome, which is again one of the stair steps to socialism.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely right, and it's not like they can't. I mean, my daughter is mixing. She's smarter than I ever was, and is at Harvard, But so anything can be done. There's brilliant people of all stripes, but everybody in a country of every religion and ethnicity and everything else, you have to be meritocracy. And I don't begrudge the Asians who outscore us.
Yes.
And outachieve us.
They work at it.
Listen. They work at it, and God damn it, more power to them.
All right, Peter, we're at a commercial break, and I got to let you go because we got a bunch of other callers waiting on the line, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Michael. I thought that little press conference by Whitmer was quite interesting. If you saw it, they brought out, I forget who the guy was, a Surgeon General or something, and of course he was concerned about the color, and it was supposed to be about coronavirus, but all of a sudden it faded into the color issue and how they're going to keep fighting for equality.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody noticed that, but I thought it was pretty laughable for me to see a corona press conference turn into how they're going to fight for equality. But nevertheless, it's even more complicating to see that they're going to continue to shut the state down, and then, of course, these blue states are going to blame Trump when their economy all goes south while they're at the helm. So I thought that was interesting. And then just, give Jim a little information on Dave. I think the last thing that did it for Dave is he was kind of becoming an enemy of himself. And I think what happened was the last straw rather, he called in on Kelso's show, and he was trying to appear as if he was a Trump supporter. And of course, Kelso is really pro-Trump, and I think the network kind of caught wind of that. And to the network's credit, they do monitor the shows pretty well.
Yes.
But I wanted to get your comment on the Whitmer issue and that, and closing down the economy, and essentially the guy coming in and stealing the press conference and making it about race and equality and all this other stuff instead of, even the corona took a back seat for that. So I'd like to get your comments, Michael, and thank you for another great show.
Well, thank you for the phone call, and it does seem like everybody on that side is just into grandstanding all they can, and it was inappropriate for this individual to come on Whitmer's press conference and basically hijack the theme of the show away from COVID and trying to get into this whole race issue. But increasing racial tensions appears to definitely be part of the agenda we're seeing from the liberal left. And so maybe that's why he kind of did that. Anyway, Miles, thank you very much for the phone call. And we're going to switch over to Mark in New York. And Mark, I'm probably going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I just wanted to call in response to Jim in New York. Take you off the speaker here.
Yeah.
But first of all, I think Dave was bad radio. And you call in as Mr. Nice Guy, and then all of a sudden he turns it into this evangelical. This is what I call this proselytizing. He did it. Yeah. There are a couple of things that I saw, and actually said a prayer on that Sunday night. Said, God, I wish this guy was banned, because on Friday he was getting all out of out of whack. And then he called in, and he was really getting on you, yelling at you and saying this and that. You're this, you don't do that. And then on Saturday, he called in Saturday night. So I'm hearing him every day, doing the same stuff, calling Mr. Nice Guy, and then doing these nurseries. I call him the Northeast Nursery Rhyme Knucklehead, because he'd call in, and then he'd go into this thing and then he'd get, oh God, swearing and the world is evil, this country's evil, and Trump bumpkin and all this stuff. And I just got to say, we're not some blowhards, delinquent kids. These RBN radio listeners, that need a scolding. And another thing, we're not some starry-eyed evangelical congregation that needs to be hearing people calling in with this proselytizing. And David was doing it constantly.
Yes, he was.
And I can tell you, he did it. James, on Saturday night, he called in. He was kind of bullying James. And James, I think it's James, the Trump show, Trump Phenomenon. It was one of the first times I did a Saturday night. I was like, oh, okay, I'll put this on, relax. And then it's Dave calling in. And then he did it from Art in Philly the next night, Sunday night, and he really went off. He called in Mr. Nice Guy. And then all of a sudden he just blew up into this thing. It was disturbing, and it is disturbing. And you were kind enough to let him go on and on. And I was saying to myself, this is bad radio. I turned them off, and I would actually turn off your show and then come back and do it, or just skip the rest of the day. So, and I don't think it's good for RBN. It's not good radio at all. I think
it isn't.
Radio, I'm not
I
sure.
Actually got an email.
For a start would be you.
I got an
your
email
show is good radio.
saying that Dave was getting the God complex. Anyway, Mark, stay on the line.
All right, sure.
We got to take a break for commercials, and I'm going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show here, and we do have some lines open on the phones, area code 512-248-8252, and we're speaking with Mark in New York. And Mark, what else did you want to share with us?
Well, first, I also want to say you're incredibly patient, man, and you were very patient with not only Dave but a lot of callers, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure you've had to be patient with me with some of the things that I've called in on, and I hope I'm not on any bronze or silver list. But we'll wait and see for that one.
Okay.
But with
I
Dave,
think you're aluminum.
I think I think instead of 2 weeks, with Dave, I think he needs like 6 months to a year. And he could use a little bit of like Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. I was listening to that tape. I'll listen to it at the beginning of every year, just to separate his ego from his consciousness and try to work through these ideas and understand that what he's doing when he starts to proselytize like that and start saying the country's evil and, get on his high horse. I've been listening to New Earth, and this, the beginning of it, has pointed out how crazy the whole, this society is, and government is that craziness.
Yes.
And you see what's happening. It's out of control. He called it the collective consciousness. It's insane when you look at, he talks about the wars that go on, and then he'll bring in Jesus talking about the lilies in the field, saying how come people have gotten away from that, and maybe even the Pope sometimes too, when he gets involved with politics and joins that collective that's across the whole human consciousness. Everybody's nuts. And what scares me about the Democrats is they tapped into that, starting from Hillary, really brought it through. She's the one that brought in, with the Clintons, this social, awareness, this identity politics. I remember the book Chris Cerf came out with, the politically correct handbook. He had 2 handbooks where you call a fat person vertically challenged, or stuff like that. And you could put and there were all these things that he talked about in an interview, and how they were coming in and making up these things every day. So it started in the 90s. I think it will go away when the Clintons go away. It will sort of die out because there won't be anybody really funding it. Right now it works because it's a psychological.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, you still have George Soros who's pouring a lot of money, into his globalist dreams. You've got Bill Gates with his billions. They're all out there playing God. with ordinary people's lives, and it's a very alarming trend.
It is, and I think what people can see the difference, when you listen, I recommend, those Eckhart Tolle books, New Earth. I also got Mastery, which talked about, it's by Ken Green. He wrote a bunch of weird, kind of books, one on seduction, one on the 48 Laws of Power. I thought that was interesting because you can see it in what people are doing. I don't use it for myself per se, but I use it to see the stories about in the history and the way it's being used today. But he talks in Mastery about how everybody's on their own path to pursue their interests, like Da Vinci, where he was born as a bastard child, but he was able to get paper and he drew flowers and it turned in, and he couldn't just go the way of all these artists. He had to go into other things, and he found a way about things and thinking outside the box, and he turned in, and that created who he was. And meanwhile, you see these people in the street, they're not even thinking about that. They're getting used. They're tools.
Yes, they are.
Of the left, and they don't even know it, because I remember when I was an angsty youngster, and I could see how these people are smart. They know what they're doing. They know how to grab that angst and use it. And once they're done with you, you're forgotten about.
Yes.
They're not going to really do. What are they going to do for you? The only shot you have is pursue. But then we're getting down to the core of, the human condition.
No, the only thing the government ever wanted from us was our money, our children for wars, and our votes, and now they don't even need the votes anymore.
Yeah, and they're nuts to begin with. They're nuts. What they're doing, everything that we're seeing, what's going on, and sending people out in the street. You don't hear Schumer doesn't come out for the whole last 6 to 10 over a half a year. All of a sudden he comes out. Now he's saying stuff. He wasn't anywhere to be seen when this hoax was coming out, this scandemic,
Yes.
and he's not speaking out. Nobody's speaking out, and that's a whole other thing. I have my list on another computer that all these things I wanted to say about improvements, but this stuff about, whether it's inciting riots the way they are, they're not speaking out, or using the floor to call the president, the House floor to call the president, treasonous by saying he's working with foreign. That's got to stop.
Yes.
Term limits. If the president has term limits, so should the House, because these guys are nuts. You can't. I think 2 or 3 terms at the most. And if you like it that much, then you can still go back to your state and get a stipend. And if you want to bribe it, look, we know the government's the best government money can buy. So why not? Hey, look, you want to bribe? Send the money to the state, feed the poor, build some houses. If that's what you want, why give it all to Joe Biden? Why give it all to Hunter? Why not give it to Pennsylvania for the people that need it? And understand that the American way today, get bribed. What's in it for me? Brothers got to get paid, You got to get paid.
Yep, it's all about
whatever.
the bench.
I could go on, but yeah. And the last thing I could say, I heard Tucker and Ann Coulter saying, "Oh, he's going to lose. Trump is going to lose." I think they're just kind of playing the middle, but also they're a little bit worried that they don't want to stick out because they're on the kind of the first go-to names in the conservative front line. That he could be walking. It's better for, I think, somebody like Ann Coulter to say, he's going to lose. Don't worry, he's done. To get the people off her back. You never know. These people are a little worried, but I don't think people I talk to, just a few around here, say, I'm a little fearful that there's going to be an outbreak. I said, well, they're saying, I kind of subscribe to, no, I do subscribe to, no, you got to fight back. We got to put our foot down now. They're just going to do it again. And they want you to be fearful. They want you to think of breaking out. I know you've said we don't want, but at least we could crack down on them if they come. I think they'll have enough support if half this country believes they have to do something. They got to stand up to this.
Well, yeah. Again, Fox News ran a story. Fox News ran a story here just a little while ago about how businesses all across the United States of America are openly defying all these lockdowns, and eventually they're going to run out of police officers to lock all these people back down. But I think the American people are just fed up with all of this nonsense that we've been dealing with, both about the COVID-19 and the election fraud. There's a lot of anger out there right now.
Yeah, and I see a lot. I can't believe it when I go running. I see people in the open trail. They're wearing the mask with the fresh air. The sun's out. Vitamin D on the skin, and they're wearing the mask in the cars, walking down the street. I was like, come on, she's like walking her away. This even today, I was like, I can't believe it. Even this summer, in 90-degree humid heat, people were on a bicycle, riding with the mask on. I said, I cannot imagine that's how fearful they are with the mask. Sometimes you see people when they're wearing this mask. This one guy lives in my neighborhood, wears his mask to take the garbage out, and he yelled at me for not wearing a mask. And meanwhile, he's out there smoking a cigarette. I said, what are you doing? I can smell your cigarette. I'm not complaining about it. Yeah. Like, if that's much worse for you than wearing a mask. I don't know how he does it. Does he wear the mask, smoke the cigarette, or put out the mask? I don't know. It's around it. But I can smell, now that I stopped smoking like 10 years ago, I smell cigarette like 2 houses down.
Yeah.
And this guy wears a lot of perfume. I smell it 4 houses down. Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, Mark.
All these little things I don't understand. All right, sure.
Mark, need to move on here. Thank you very much for the phone call, and we're going to switch to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Hey, Michael, I've been hearing some callers say, why haven't the guys from Jersey called, or why haven't people called? Some people claimed I was a shill for the Democratic Party because I advocated for the Constitution Party. And the reality is when you switch the number to the 5, the new number, it's harder for me to call because I can't use my landline, and then I have to use the cell phone that I share with my wife. So that's part of the reason I'm not calling.
Okay.
Otherwise, I still proudly stand behind my ideas and my problems with the Republican Party and the Trump administration. I haven't deterred or wavered on my core beliefs. And so that's where I've been. I'm not hiding from any of the Trump fans out there. I'm not hiding.
Okay.
I prefer Trump over Biden, but that doesn't mean there's not better people out there than Trump out there. And I still believe that.
Okay.
All right. And by the way, I urge people to take a look at the Constitution Party platform, and you would find that many of their views are very conservative and more in line with your views than you think, like in balancing the budget.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. Not running up the national debt. And also military involvement overseas. Constitution Party is much, much better than the core Republican Party on that. So that's why I haven't been calling. And I stand by my views. Now, I just wanted to make a quick notice, because this is another one of these little points I hear among conservative talk show hosts. Because I hear a lot of people are like, the billionaires doubled their money. They doubled their money the past year, right?
Yes.
Now, if you people had listened to me back in March when I called, I said how the stock market, when it was around 20,000, 18,000, what did I say on RBN? I said, fellas, buy stock, get in the market. Now, John Stadmuller, he at the time when it was at 18,000, he says, oh, he thinks it's going down to 13,000. I said, no, I was advocating cost averaging in my conversation. And so everybody who had played the market and got in back in March would have doubled their money too, not just billionaires. So if you didn't double your money since March, fellas, you weren't paying attention to the market. So it's important, since this is a capitalist-run country, right? You try to save up your money, study the stock market, and when you see prices and blood in the streets, you buy stock. That's all. So I don't get it why people are all mad that Jeff Bezos doubled his money. Bill Gates is making a fortune. The Waltons are making a fortune. Everybody's making a fortune. Even middle-class guys like me have done pretty well if you study the market. Because, listen, I'm not a pure capitalist. I believe in some socialism. But since I'm in a capitalist society, I might as well try to make money like the rest of the capitalists do. So you have to speculate and learn to play the stock. And so that's another, just one point I wanted to make up. And the last point before I go, and you're very kind, Michael.
Yes.
Is I want to remind people, because right now they're having about the election redo in Georgia for the senators.
Yes.
Remember this Loeffler woman, remember what she was involved in back in January? See, she sits on the Intel Committee, the Senate Intel Committee. And she got information about COVID. And what did she do? She sold her stock, and she shorted her stock. And she was the one Republican up there with I think Feinstein was another person involved in this. There were two other senators involved in using that insider information and selling their stock.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
So this woman, Loeffler, what?
I said it's a big problem in Congress.
Of course, and if they just shared it with the rest of us, we would have all known to bail on stock. But anyway, she's one of the ones who had the inside information, sold off her personal stock based on it, and I hope the voters in Georgia hold her accountable. Remember, just because she's a Republican doesn't make her not a criminal and not using the insider knowledge for herself to bail and have that insider knowledge to make stock trade. And I just want to remind your audience. And on that note, thank you, Michael.
All right. Well, thank you very much as well here. And I want to clarify something. I think people's anger with Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and the rest of their ilk isn't just the fact that they're rich, it's what they're doing with the money that is adversely affecting our country, and that's what makes them angry. I have no rancor toward anybody who's wealthy. There are people I admire, like George Lucas and James Cameron and Steven Spielberg, who've become very, very rich, producing, good product, good entertainment, and they do good things with their money. James Cameron underwrites his brother's oceanographic research, and so I have no objection to that. But these others who see themselves as gods that want to play around with planet Earth and its people like a personal toy, that's an area of some concern. All righty, we're going to go to Kelly in Austin. And Kelly, I'm probably going to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Okay, I think one of the issues with Bezos and others is that many of us resent them for the fact that they benefited handsomely from the shutdown and the handcuffing of small business across the country.
Yes, they did.
And I resent them very deeply for that. Secondly, I think Dave is mentally ill. He sounds like someone who is, and he really needs to get some professional help. Lastly, my central point for calling is that the only way I think to resolve this issue regarding voter fraud is to have a complete forensic analysis in the 6 swing states. That seems to be where most of the fraud has occurred. And I think you need to do a thorough forensic analysis there. For example, Arizona, a judge granted Republicans the opportunity to pull at random 100 ballots across the state, and they found those 100 ballots a 3% error caused by ballots that had been changed or forged.
Yes.
And if you project that across the state, that's a 90,000 vote difference. And Arizona is bad, and it wasn't obvious nearly as bad as Michigan or Wisconsin.
All righty. Kelly, stay on the line. Stay on the line. I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to come back to you right after these few words. And welcome back to our show here. We're finishing up with Kelly in Austin. Kelly, just pick up where you left off.
Well, I was talking about the voter fraud.
Yes.
if you go back and look at the Benford's law analysis, would show clear anomalies with respect to all of Biden's votes in these swing states. And you look at that forensic analysis that I sent you the other day, you can actually see the magnitude of the fraud. And that in itself, both the Benford's law analysis and the forensic analysis by voter integrity are, I think, compelling reasons for the Supreme Court perhaps to order a complete audit of the votes in those states before anything is certified. And I tell you what, if they did that, that'd scare the hell out of a bunch of Democrats. You might see a bunch of them bailing the country, trying to find a place to go to that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just thoroughly disgusted right now. I don't think you could trust your vote right now. I really don't. And this quote election is an indication, more than anything else, that the president is selected. He was selected. He was not. He was not elected. And so I'm just disgusted with this whole thing. We've got to do something.
You've got a lot of company there. You've got half the American people are disgusted with what happened.
Yeah, I think people are a lot angrier than you're hearing about, because you're not the media are downplaying it. But the people I talk with, and I get out in the deep on the dark web and those places, people are furious, Mike.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing that here too.
If this thing is just handed over, if this thing is handed over to Biden, I think you're going to see a violent eruption in this country like you've never seen before. I'm serious.
Well, I'm philosophically opposed to that sort of thing, but I can understand it does feel like something like that is coming. It doesn't matter, if Trump succeeds at the Supreme Court, the liberal left are going to riot like they did back in 2016. If Biden steals it, I hope cooler heads will prevail, but at this point, I'm perfectly understanding if there is, in fact, the beginnings of a civil war in this country. In the event of war, I'm hostage.
And the other side, and if the other side, on my side, decides, okay, we're going to accept you as president, we're cutting our own throats, because he's going to move very quickly to turn this country into a one-party state.
Yeah, that is definitely their goal. Just like the former Soviet Union. Just like the former Soviet Union. Okay. Or Nazi Germany. That was a one-party state.
Yeah, and Communist China.
That's true. Yeah, that's where.
Mike, thanks for taking my call.
Well, thank you very much for the phone call here. We're going to let you go. And we are almost at the end of our show. You probably have already heard this, but the Arecibo Observatory radio telescope platform collapsed completely. It had already been condemned for a controlled demolition because two of the support cables to that antenna platform had let go. But I guess it didn't want to wait for the demolition, and that entire top platform came crashing down. And for those of you who watch movies, the radio telescope was featured in GoldenEye and also in the movie Contact with Jodie Foster. And there's the music, so it's time for me to get out of here. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting Network. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. It has never been more important right now. And it's the Christmas season of giving, so kind of reach into your little pocket there. It'll help us out a little bit here. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.